The first lie I told tonight was that I was on my way home. The second was that it would be fine. I was wiping grease from my hands in the maintenance bay when Lena texted back a line so sweet it should have stuck to the screen. I told her I would make it up to her. She sent a heart and went quiet. I am Evan Holt. Night shift ride mechanic, safety inspector when paperwork demands it, married when the light is right. The pier is closed for the season, which means the boards groan to no one and the carousel horses look like they are waiting for a verdict. I finished the checklist for the coaster brake assembly at 2:17 a.m., initialed the line, and leaned on the rail while the gulls practiced their crimes on the dumpsters. My phone buzzed again. "Isn't your lover's Johnson size enough to please you?" The words were wrong for her mouth. They were a dare thrown from a balcony. I watched the message bloom and go still. My ribs cooled. I did the simple thing. I checked family sharing. Her phone had location enabled because she liked to find me when I missed dinner. It said, home. The little dot sat on our block like a thumbtack. Then I saw the feed on her Cash App, public because she thought privacy was a mood. A room service split for midnight dessert. Strawberries, champagne, a photo in a mirror. The kind of photo you take when the world is only you and your favorite lie. The reflection held a piece of brass with a vanity tag. Ty-Kade. The muscle car local god. The man who sells shine by the ounce and posts his own applause. I messaged her a half-joke about being late. She angled back a line about getting what a girl needs. I pictured the cheap motel on the inlet road that sells quiet by the hour and clean sheets by rumor. I left the bay, locked up, and drove the little maintenance cart along the spine of the pier. The boards drummed under me and flung salt into my teeth. I wasn't thinking about murder. I was thinking about the way a screw sits wrong if someone started it in a hurry. Home was a postcard that someone had tried to burn. The grill was still warm. My hoodies bled plastic onto the grate. The bedroom was a vacuum where our clothes used to be. She had taken her good shoes and my old baseball cap and the photograph of us on the tilt-a-whirl. She left the junk you leave when you plan to post a better life tomorrow. In the kitchen junk drawer, under menus and spare batteries, I found a thin plastic rectangle with Gull's Reach stamped across the front and a magnetic stripe. A vendor key card. Not mine. Old Sal says salt cleans a wound if you are mean to it. I slipped the card under my tongue like a curse, locked the door behind me, and went back to the pier. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I went to the electrician's room where old Sal keeps a radio with a coat of nicotine. He was there because he is always there, a scarecrow with a coffee mug and a brain full of wires. He looked at my face and didn't ask the wrong question. "Salt cleans a wound if you're mean to it," he said, as if I had asked. "What did you learn?" "That my wife is networking after hours," I said, "and that Darren is selling vendor access like it grows on the pilings." He spit into a paper cup and nodded. "Everybody owes somebody. Don't swing, file, make gravity work for you." That became the plan. No detectives riding in to save me, no petitions for miracle justice, no hacking, no cute tricks with passwords. I had public posts, the family sharing ping, a melted hoodie I could hold up like a broken promise, and a key card that didn't belong in my house. I had my license to inspect temporary structures and load limits. I had the one thing the town respects, which is liability. Before dawn, I took pictures of the grill, the bedroom, the empty closet, the ash in the sink. I did not cry because that would have been a new job. I wrote down the facts in a notebook that used to be for torque measurements. Then I went to work, because the rides don't care who you sleep with. The key card had scuff marks along one edge. I held it up to the light and saw someone had written a number in marker and wiped it off. I went to the access panel, slid it, and checked last use. The card had opened a maintenance door on the game row an hour ago. After hours. The timing drew a neat line across my breathing. I texted Mira, the mortgage whisperer who once told me interest rates are just gossip with math. I asked if she had seen Lena. She replied with a heart and said Lena was at a networking thing. Mira always says networking. It covers everything that stains. I set my phone in airplane mode so I could feel what came next without the tap of someone else's thoughts. The ocean talked to the pilings. I went hunting with a clipboard and a legal right to ask people why they are where they are. The pier after hours is a church that forgot to lock the side door. The lights that stay on for safety make little islands. Past the skee-ball lane is a funhouse with mirrors that bend you into truths you avoid in daylight. I heard a laugh I knew from videos. Ty, the man who films himself flexing in the reflection of other people's windshields. His laugh has a shape, like a bottle rolling. I didn't step into the light. I listened. His voice rose and fell, and Lena's voice braided with it. They slipped under a safety chain as if rules were stories for other people. I lifted my phone and filmed them going where signs say, "Do not go." I did not speak to them. I did a thing I knew how to do. I pulled the breaker for the game row, and the lights died with a pop that felt like a curtain being pulled. Silence sat heavy for 1 second, then the whisper of sneakers on linoleum. I moved 3 steps and became an angle among angles. Ty said he wasn't scared. That's what men say when they are measuring their fear in front of an audience. I slid a printout under the funhouse door. It was their hotel selfie, timestamp circled in red pen, printed on regular paper from the office because it does not take a spy to make a point. I heard him swear when the paper touched his shoe. A golf cart's small engine thrummed from the end of the row. I prepared to meet a rent-a-guard with a flashlight and an attitude. Instead, Officer Bell coasted up, hat low, eyes taking in things he did not want to write. He looked at me, at the breaker, at the funhouse door, and then at the key card in my hand. "Noise complaint from the condos," he said. "You got company." "Vendor pass opened the door," I said. "Not mine." He nodded once. Bell hates paperwork and loves quiet. He doesn't solve problems. He widens aisles. Behind the glass, Ty and Lena knocked into a reflective corridor and made their own little haunted house. I opened the door with my own master key and walked in. I did not touch them. I turned on the ride test siren. It's a legal system check. It makes your backbone hum. Ty panicked and ran at his reflection as if mirrors break facts. He hit glass, bounced, and cursed. I stood in the wash of red light and said, "Thought your license plate only reflected light." He flinched because he had seen the printout and knew what I knew. Bell appeared over my shoulder and sighed. "Darren vouched them in," he said under his breath, "for cash." The word was tired, not cruel. I switched off the siren. "There is a pop-up gala next week," I said to nobody and everybody. "It will follow load limits, or it will not happen." Outside, the wind moved the banner that said, "Welcome back soon." The words sounded like a dare. I pocketed a copy of the gala schedule as I left. The mirror maze breathed behind me. The funhouse keeps its breath even when the park is closed. The mirrors stand there with their soft hum like they are remembering everyone who ever came in to argue with their own face. I used the master key and walked the perimeter slow, checking latches and the emergency lights. I kept my radio low. Bell was somewhere on the pier riding herd on calls he did not want, but he knew where I was. I left the breaker off and used a flashlight with a tight beam. 2 sets of sneakers scuffed the entry rug. Ty and Lena, dressed like a commercial for a better life, slid through the rope the way kids do when they want to be seen breaking a rule. I let them go deep enough that the building owned their direction. They moved into the corridor where the mirrors bow your shape in and then spit you back out like a wave. I watched their reflections fold into each other and separate. He touched her waist like he was checking for a wallet. She angled her phone without turning the volume down, so I heard the tinny flutter of an app that lives to make strangers jealous. I flicked the breaker. The siren came up in a whoop that made the mirrors cough red and the floor buzz under our feet. The exit signs burned green. The regulation is simple. When power cycles after hours, the system wants proof you are awake enough to leave. My voice slid over the PA like a calm stranger. This is a system test. Please proceed to the nearest marked exit. Do not run. Ty ran anyway. He barreled down the aisle at a wall that looked like an opening and introduced his shoulder to the truth. Glass shivered in its frame. He bounced back with a curse that tried to sound brave and ended up sounding familiar. Lena grabbed his sleeve with 2 fingers like the fabric offended her. I stepped into the corridor where he could see me and not my shadow. You love a camera, I said. Tonight you get mirrors. He pawed at his pocket like he might produce swagger and found only his phone. He raised it, filming, the lens trembling. You can't trap us, he said. This is illegal. The door behind you is open, I said. You walked past 2 exit signs to get here. That is what the report will say. And the video. I'll sue, he said. Get in line, I said. Lena looked at my face the way you look at a fire alarm that went off during a wedding. She was annoyed at the timing, not the danger. Turn the siren off, she said. You're being dramatic. You burned my clothes, I said. This is me being practical. Footsteps scuffed outside. Bell knocked twice and slid the outer door a hand's width. System test, he said in his ghost voice. Exit is that way. His hat brim cut the light like a level. He did not step in. He does not collect problems. He lets them file themselves. Ty tried to shoulder by me and discovered I am built to take a hit and not move. I did not touch him. I pivoted and let his own momentum herd him toward the correct corridor. He slapped a mirror on the way, like he was checking whether the world was real. His palm came away with a smear of his own sweat. I lowered the volume of the siren and leaned into the mic. Test complete, I said. Thank you for your cooperation. The calm voice is a trick you learn, so panic does not ask for a dance. He turned at the threshold, face bright with the wrong kind of heat. You keep this up and I'll make a video you can't ignore, he said. You already did, I said. I raised my phone and let him see the first frame of his burnout clips paused on the access road, smoke curling like handwriting. He blinked. The word insurer did not come out of my mouth, but it hung there like a sign. Lena followed him out, chin up, mascara holding like it had tenure. She brushed past Belle without a word, and the wind took her perfume and broke it on the boards. The funhouse settled a notch. I stood there until my heartbeat forgot the math. Then I walked the route again and logged the test. Reports are the rope you throw yourself when people try to pretend wind is a rumor. Back outside, Bell holstered his hands. You did not touch them, he said. I like that part. I understand load limits, I said. He gazed down the row where the lights make a zipper into the dark. Word is Darren took cash for that pass, he said. If the word starts writing itself into my book, there will be a meeting. Put me on the invite list, I said. Don't try to be a hero, he said. Heroes break bones, I said. I file paperwork. He nodded. He appreciates boring. People who live on adrenaline do not visit the pier in winter. The mirror behind it showed a man who sleeps less than he pretends and keeps his tools in order because he cannot keep much else. Morning pushed at the blinds like a polite thief. I made coffee and did not look at the empty half of the closet. I scrubbed the smell of burned polyester out of the kitchen and opened windows to let in air that tasted like salt and old coins. Then I put on the badge that says Safety Inspector and went to the ballroom where the gala people had decided to rehearse being important. The ballroom used to be where families ate corn dogs and air conditioning. Now it had velvet ropes and a sponsor step and repeat that looked better online than in person. Someone had hung a chandelier on a plant hook. Cords ran across walking paths like black snakes sunning. A velvet bench sat under a marked exit. If you want to know whether people respect safety, look at where they put their pretty furniture. I took a slow tour with a clipboard. My pen clicked. Darren trailed me like a man trying to sell a car with the check engine light taped over. He wore a shirt with a collar shiny from friction. He used phrases like festival atmosphere and curated sponsor moments. I used phrases like aisle clearance and egress obstruction. The neat trick about liability is you never have to raise your voice. "This is art," he said near the chandelier, like art was a permit. "This is load over a cheap hook," I said. "Bring it down or bring in proper rigging. Also, the exit sign is taped with gauze. Remove it." He laughed, and then noticed I was not laughing. He waved at a kid with a tool belt who looked like he might have been 16 last week. The kid climbed a ladder too fast. I put a hand on the ladder and slowed his urgency to legal speed. Lena ghosted in with a garment bag and a glued smile. Keely followed her with a phone and a grin sharp enough to cut ribbon. Mira was already there, talking to a couple in passive-aggressive whispers. The air smelled like cheap citrus cleaner and pride. Lena boxed me into a corner with her eyes. "You make yourself necessary," she said. "It is almost a talent." "I am necessary," I said. "Gravity and fire don't care about your sponsor wall." "You really want to do this," she said, voice low. "You really want me to be the villain in your working man tragedy." "You volunteered," I said. "You brought a match to my house and called it a candle." Her cheeks colored in 2 vertical strokes, like someone had painted her fast. "You want revenge," she said. "This is about masculinity. This is about me paying a mortgage and waking up in a room you lit like a grill," I said. "This is about my shirts turned to coins in the grass." Keely swanned past and deposited a box on a mirrored console. "Lost and found," the label said in my handwriting because I had put it there. I had thrown in a hotel shower cap with Ty's sticker because I have a sense of theater like anyone who keeps rides from hurting people. Darren coughed up a compliance nod. "We will move the bench," he said. He said it like he was performing generosity. "Move it now," I said. The bench slid on felt feet. The exit sign burned a clean green. Little victories count. They are how you make a day add up to something better than a list of insults. When the walk-through was done, Lena intercepted me near the catering table and put her painted finger on a paper plate like she might press a button. "You touch my work again, and I'll salt the earth behind you," she said with a smile big enough for strangers. "You already did," I said. "You salted it with a blowtorch." She blinked. Keely's reflection in the catering tray showed teeth. Mira drifted like a cloud looking for a mountain. I signed my report and sent a copy to management so no one could say they were surprised by physics. Small towns do not need lies. They need only the boring truth dropped in the right place. I sent Keely facts dressed like gossip. Ty's lease payment was late. Darren borrowed cords from the pier inventory. Lena used fake ficus to hide a patch of wall mold and forgot the air purifier in the staging photos. None of it a crime. All of it a weight when put on the same side of the scale. The HOA forum spun up like a fan in August. I posted before and after pictures of a condo staging where Lena had hung a swing from a beam rated for light fixtures. I asked a calm question. Has this anchor been tested for load? The owner messaged to thank me and told me I could leave the photos up. She said she did not want a lawsuit living above her breakfast nook. When truth is dull enough, people read it longer. By night, my old iPad chimed. It still knew her login because I once fixed her settings and never told her. I do not poke into messages I do not need. I read only the ones sent to me. Mira sent a calendar invite titled "Meet No Cops" and a location that used to be a donut shop and is now a smoothie place that tastes like grass with ambition. She brought a manila envelope because symbols help some people. Inside were screenshots of Ty in her DMs, posing like a magazine page and drafting lines about how she deserved attention from a man who hustled. It was garden variety. It also showed he lacked aim and that his public taste for Lena did not stop him from casting into every boat at the dock. "I am not doing this for you," Mira said. "I'm doing it for the town. People like her ruin markets." "You are doing it because you want the top chair and she stands in front of it," I said. She paused long enough to decide whether honesty would taste good. "And that," she said. "You are quick, Evan. I will give you that." "What do you want from me?" I said. "I want you to hold a mirror in front of her and him," she said. "I want to hear the crack." "You could do that without me," I said. She smiled like she had practiced and was proud of her work. "I want to see if you can balance a book while the wind is blowing," she said. "I hear you are good at that." I took the envelope and left, because I do not like being used even when the use is useful. Outside, the sky was the color of a bruise on a peach, the kind of sky that says you are not done yet. I went home and wrote another page in the notebook where torque specs live next to the names of people who talk too much. The next afternoon, I met old Sal by the storage containers behind the bumper cars. He handed me a rusty padlock big as his thumb and said, "For doors that slam in wind, also for memories." He does not explain. He gives you objects that will be necessary later and trusts you to figure out when. "Ty invited me to his warehouse," I said. "Bring your knees and leave your pride," he said. "And tell Bell you are going. He hates surprises. They make him right." I texted Bell and got a thumbs up I could almost respect, because it meant he was in the neighborhood if the night decided to get creative. Then I walked to the street where Ty rents square footage and attention by the gallon. He met me at the roll-up door with a grin he puts on like cologne. "Let's talk like men," he said. "I prefer to talk like adults," I said. He shoved my shoulder in that careful way that keeps deniability alive. I did not move. I let him jog a circle through pallets and hoses, while a live stream camera watched a wall. When he came back breathing hard, I was at the panel with the foam cannon switch already flipped. White Sea crashed across his influencer set and turned his ring light into a halo for a clown. "What are you doing?" he said, spitting soapy air. "Cleaning," I said. I stepped in and let my palm find his cheek once. A simple, open-handed slap. The sound cracked. "That is for the hoodies," I said. "That is me speaking a language you understand and the law respects." His chat filled with punctuation. He grabbed for the camera like he could pull himself into it and out of the room. I left him in the suds and walked into night that smelled like foam and rain on hot metal. When a man lives for cameras, the kindest thing you can do is make the lens honest for a minute. I sent him a clip of his own burnout on the pier access road with the caption, "Delete your copies, or I show your insurer and the lease office." He replied with a threat that read like he wrote it with a crayon. I responded with 2 emojis I do not use because they do not fit my hands. A plank. A roller coaster. He will think about that long after he forgets my face. 2 blocks away, my phone buzzed again. Keeley had forwarded me his fresh DMs to her. Lines about meeting before the gala, about making content, about how she was special in ways that required a camera. She added a note. "He is stupid enough to help you," it said. I typed back a single line. "I don't need help. I need gravity." Rain ticked, the kind that whispers a promise and then keeps it. I went home and checked the forecast and underlined the words gale warning. Then I laid out my safety demo cards for the gala and printed labels for the prop table. I do not bait traps. I label exits and let people decide whether they want to walk through them. When I finally shut off the light, the pier hummed in my bones. The ocean sawed at the edge of town, and the rides dreamed of summer. I dreamed of a red lanyard in a storm and a line that would feel like dropping a key in a net. I spent the morning writing the incident report with the kind of clarity that survives meetings. Time, location, door, card, people, no adjectives. I attached still frames from the security cameras that show 2 figures slipping under a rope that says, "Do not enter," and another that says, "Please act like you were raised by humans." I CC'd management and legal because if you want men in ties to read, you give them their names in the header. Within an hour, Darren texted me an emoji that pretends to be hands in prayer and then called. "We are going to shift the gala inside," he said, breathless like he had run from a decision. "The ballroom has soul anyway." "The ballroom has walls anyway," I said. "Walls are useful when the forecast says gusts that knock hats into counties." "I knew you'd be a team player," he said. "I'm a building player," I said. He moved the event. He did not thank me twice. People rarely thank the man who closed a door that the wind was planning to use as a hammer. I offered to lead a safety demo the night of. He said that would be incredible, and he meant it in that way. People mean it when they know they cannot say no. I drew diagrams of chairs and cables and exit aisles that meet code and dignity. I printed them big enough that you could read them from a foolish distance. At the rehearsal, I found the green room and glanced at the trash can like a man who looks under hoods and floorboards because the story is in the small parts. A consignment tag curled against a paper cup. Not evidence, just texture. Lena was getting ready in the mirror with a pair of earrings that said, "Tomorrow," in a font I did not recognize. Mira watched her the way a cat watches a bird feeder. Keely took photos of everything that did not move and some things that did. Mira texted me from across the room. "Ty isn't just with Lena." I looked up and she smiled like a card trick. Keely sent screenshots of his new messages to her. "Show up solo. Bring your honest face. We will make content." He was a fisherman who thought the bay had infinite fish. Men like that learn subtraction late. I walked the ballroom with a roll of gaffer tape and a mind like a ruler. I marked cable crossings with bright mats and taped the mats to the floor like I was arguing with a stubborn tide. I checked extinguishers and dates. I checked hinges and latches. I made a list on a clipboard that would be readable when the lights flickered. When I was done, I stood in the balcony and looked down at the layout like it was a puzzle I could solve by making the corners behave. The room looked good in the way rooms look good right before they learn what they are made of. The forecast ticked louder. The wind at the doors did its interview again. I answered with sandbags and calm sentences. The day before the gala, the sky wore a gray that meant weather with opinions. The National Weather Service issued a gale watch that wagged its finger but did not shout yet. We lowered the coaster cars to their ground cradles and pinned them because pinned things behave in storms. I walked the catwalk to the apex and checked the handbrake because I do not like relying on the last thing without touching it myself. The brake lever moved clean and locked with a noise like a promise you can legally enforce. Old Sal met me by the tool cage and handed me the rusty padlock like he was knighting me with a piece of the pier. "For doors that want to argue," he said, "and for nights that ask if you have your homework." "I have my homework," I said. "Your homework has you," he said, and laughed dry. I set up the lost property table by the VIP entrance and made sure the sign said demonstration props in letters that even a distracted person could not mistake. Emoji cufflinks, toothbrush from a chain hotel, a burned scrap of fabric in a plexi box with a label that talked about combustion risk near cleaners. Every item boring, every label true. People build a story faster when they know you are not lying. Officer Bell watched me work from a distance, came over only when I wiped my hands. "You going to be calm on the mic?" he said. "I have 2 settings," I said. "Calm and asleep." "Don't do anything that makes me write more," he said. "I am trying to reduce paperwork," I said. He nodded. He appreciates that my idea of a win is a form he does not have to fill out. He left to go tell a man at the marina that he could not tie his boat to a piece of town history with a bungee cord. Keely texted me a screenshot of Ty telling her to show up without Lena and to wear something that goes with white cars and foam. She added a note. "He will trip over his own tongue." I replied with a period because sometimes punctuation is all a man can spare. That night, after the rehearsal, I stood alone in the ballroom and talked to the PA. "Testing 1, 2, 3, I said. I pitched my voice into a frequency that cuts through nervous laughter and finds the part of the ear that calls the feet to order. In the mirrored wall, a man with grease under his nails and a clean shirt looked back, and I believed him long enough to keep going. The morning of the gala, the gale watch became a warning. The radar showed green that thought about becoming yellow. The boardwalk had that look that means people might have to run in heels. I did a final pass of the pier, like a farmer walking his fence line before the first hard freeze. The coaster cars looked like animals sleeping under a tarp. The funhouse breathed. The banners talked to themselves. Bell met me near the game row with a coffee and a face that says he slept, but not in a bed. "Do the thing you do," he said. "The thing I do is read the weather and take away toys the weather could use to hit people," I said. "Do that," he said. "And try not to get me called into the ballroom for a problem that has a microphone." "Everything has a microphone," I said. He snorted. "I hate that you are right." We shook hands, which is what passes for ritual among men who dislike ritual. He peeled off toward the condos to explain wind to someone who believed his balcony was a constitution. I checked the emergency lights with the building power on backup and counted the seconds between blinks. I taped down another cable because a kid always finds the one you missed. I lined up 2 spare flashlights and new batteries at the stage corner and drew a box around them on my clipboard so I could find them when the lights were playing games. I am not brilliant. I am prepared. Prepared wins in rooms where speeches try to. As guests began to arrive, I saw Keeley glide through the VIP line like smoke and Ty in a jacket that belonged to a louder party. Lena showed up in a dress that told the room to keep up. Mira wore a smile you could mistake for kindness if you had never been disappointed. Darren walked around waving a radio like it was a prop from a show about competence. I stood by the PA and let my heartbeat match the hum from the amps. The wind pushed the doors and learned they were latched by men who expected to sleep tonight. We were ready for weather and for people. In my experience, the people are harder. At 7:05, I lifted the mic and let the room meet my voice. "Good evening," I said. "My name is Evan. I am the safety inspector for the pier and the person who stands between you and a story you will not enjoy. We are going to go over exits, extinguishers, and what we do if the room decides to try something." Mild laughter, because people laugh when they are being told they have to learn. I pointed at doors and lights. I showed them the mats over cables like a man pointing at seaweed that will trip you if you pretend it is just decoration. I explained wind protocol, that if gusts hit a certain number, we stop pretending and start moving. "Please do not block the exits," I said. "Chairs like to wander. Do not let them." The banner rig behind the sponsor wall wobbled like a man who heard a joke twice. I had asked for more sandbags. Darren had applied a prayer. The prayer failed. The rig tipped. It came down into a rectangular slice of air I had kept clear because you keep a rectangle for surprises. The crash sounded like a cabinet of expensive dishes deciding they were done. People screamed. Gloves of silence followed the screams. I did not raise my voice. "We are going to move 5 steps to the right," I said, the mic soft. "Walk. Do not run. You will find a bar over there that does not know your name yet but is willing to learn." Movement obeyed. The room adjusted like a shoulder popping back into its socket. The DJ powered down his louder ideas while I made eye contact with the volunteers. Hands opened doors. The chandelier looked at the floor and decided to stay. Ty grabbed a second mic, like it owed him a living. "No big deal, folks," he said. "We are going to keep the energy up." Feedback shrieked because he pointed the head at the speaker, and physics does not care about your vibe. He winced, laughed, and tried again. "Sometimes the wind just wants to dance," he said. Keeley stood near the center of the new crowd and airdropped Ty's DMs to everyone because everyone is a legal option now. Phones chimed, heads bowed. People read the lines where he told her to come without Lena and asked whether she liked the way Foam looked on camera. People made faces, people made decisions. Load limits matter, I said into my mic, in buildings and in relationships. The line was a little neat. The laugh it bought was useful. Laughter is an air valve. It bleeds panic without letting courage leak. Mira leaned toward Lena with a smile so bright it was a weapon and said, "He's your brand, huh?" The DJ's mic, hot from Ty's grab, carried it to the room. The sentence settled like dust on everything. Lena froze, then turned on a heel that could cut cloth. She headed for the service door that leads to the coaster house, a straight shot through a corridor of framed photos of summers that behaved. Ty jogged after her, grabbing the keys to the golf cart from the hook by the loading dock, like a man stealing a solution. I handed my mic to a volunteer and said, "If the wind hits 25 sustained, start seating people. You know the drill." She nodded because she had been trained. That is why you train. Bell caught my eye from by the main entrance. I tipped my head toward the service corridor. He gave me a look that said, "Do not do something that makes me chase you," and then made a small go-ahead motion anyway. He trusts me not to be stupid. I try to be worthy of that trust. The service corridor felt like a throat. Fluorescents hummed. The photos watched blue water and old smiles as we went by. At the far end, the door to the coaster house banged in the wind. I stepped through to the maintenance tunnel where the wood smells like a church that has survived 3 wars and laughs about it. Their voices bounced off the beams. Ty was saying they should go live to control the story, to show the town they were unbothered. Lena was saying something about optics. I moved up the stairs into the control shack. Rain came in at the corners like 1,000 small hands trying the window. The room was long enough for one argument and a console. On the console lay a second keycard with a name printed neat along the top. Mira. Under it, a sticky note with the kind of sentence you write when you are the villain in your own story and do not know it. If he's not useful, make him a story. The handwriting did that thing on the R that I had seen on paperwork she had slid under my mug 3 times. I held the card up. Ty blinked. Lena stared like she was reading the last line of a contract without a pen. Mira, the helpful friend. Mira, the woman who feeds the rumor engine, who nudged Darren to sell a pass, who steered Ty like a boat you let children pretend they are driving while you do the actual work. She wanted Lena out of the way and a promotion pipeline clear. She wanted me angry enough to be her hammer, but not her mess. Below, a golf cart clanged against a beam and then rolled back a foot. The catwalk shivered the way your gut does when you remember you left the oven on. Thunder bruised the air. The wind pushed the door. For a second it felt like the whole structure took a breath. "Down," I said. "Now." Ty bolted up the catwalk instead because some men translate down as dare. He grabbed the handrail like an apology and started to climb. Lena stood in place, then followed because her pride hates to be alone. I took a breath, looked at the brake lever on the console, and then went up the stairs into the rain. The catwalk is a narrow truth. It does not care who you love. It does not care what you posted. It cares how you place your feet. The world dropped away on both sides into loops and dips, and the promise of speed that makes children taller in August. The storm carried the smell of the ocean and electricity. My hands remembered every rung. My mind remembered every bolt I had tightened, and every one I still meant to check. Halfway up, a banner from the ballroom, torn free by a bad decision, whirled across the air and slapped itself against a strut with the sound of an angry flag. "Keep moving," I said, more to my own muscles than to theirs. Ty slipped, caught himself, scrambled higher, because higher felt like safety from a fear that had nothing to do with gravity. Lena climbed steady, jaw locked. Behind us, the door banged and then slammed once with a finality, that said it would wait. My pocket was heavier for the padlock old Sal had handed me. I would need it when we came back down. If we came back down, we would. I make things that come back down. At the platform below the apex, I looked back at the ballroom through the rain. The crowd had turned into clusters of faces that had new ideas about who they were looking at when they looked at their phones. The DJ's lights painted the wet boards. Officer Bell was a dark shape near the exit. Radio clipped to his shoulder, head tilted so he could hear the wind and me at the same time. The town was watching without leaving the safety of its glass. "Almost there," I said to nobody. Then I went higher, toward a small room with a lever I trusted more than most people. The last stretch to the shack is a hallway of rain. The boards flex and the screws sing if you listen for it. Ty climbed with both hands like the ladder would argue. Lena climbed like she was late to a meeting she organized. I kept my weight centered and my mouth shut because the wind was asking enough questions. At the platform below the shack, I stopped them with my voice. "We go inside, we talk, we come down. You try anything loud, I shut it all down, and we let the night tell your story for you." I pointed my chin at the camera bolted to the beam. It blinked red like it was awake enough to testify. Ty swallowed. He had a century of swagger and none of the tendon. Inside, the room smelled like oil, wet plywood, and last summer. I shut the door without latching it and checked the window locks with a touch, not a fuss. The console lights glowed dull, waiting for a reason. Ty paced like he wanted to wear a groove into plywood. Lena stood at the map where the track curls like a drawn breath and stared at the loops as if they spelled a prayer. "Here's what happens," I said. "Nothing dramatic. We go down. You leave. I file what I can back up. I do not swing unless someone makes me." "Man," Ty said, "you love a speech." "I love procedures that end with no one in an ambulance," I said. He snorted. "Look at you, clipboard hero." "Heroes break bones," I said. "I tighten bolts." I tapped the panel where the handbrake indicator sat waiting. "Sit," I said. He didn't. He planted himself by the door like a guard who missed orientation. Lena turned from the map, eyebrows climbing like ladders. "You set us up," she said. "The props, the lost and found, the mirrors, you staged a play." "I staged exits," I said. "You kept skipping them." She looked past me at the second keycard on the console. "Is that my friend playing stage manager too?" she said. "Did she tell you to follow me around like a stray who found a step to sleep on?" "Mira told Darren to hand out a pass," I said. "Mira bent rumors to make you dance faster. She treated me like a wrench. She thought I would love the job." Lena's mouth thinned. "Mira wants the promotion. She always has. She's been building a staircase out of my spine since she learned where I keep my calendar." "Then stop climbing and step away," I said. Ty laughed, one short bark. "This is cute," he said. "You accusing her friend to make her crawl back to you." "I am not a place to crawl," I said. "I am a maintenance log. You are entries with dates and locations." He rolled his eyes and reached for the door. The room shifted when he pulled it. The wind shoved the panel against his shoulder and he grunted. There was a time I would have helped him. Tonight I let the door remind him he was small. We stood like that, the three of us, while the storm tapped and the building shrugged and remembered all the nights it had survived. I felt each screw in the floor through my boots and thought about how wood forgives if you ask right. People forgive wrong. "Down," I said again, quieter. "Because the longer we talk up here, the more you think about doing something stupid." Lena nodded once. Ty shook his head twice. "You come near me again," he said. "I'll break you on camera and sell the shirt. You think you're dangerous because you turned on a siren." "You want dangerous?" I said. "Go buy a ladder and act brave in a storm you didn't check the numbers for. I keep people from making a bad day worse. That's my trick." I stepped past him to the console and clicked the PA station for the ballroom. I spoke in the tone that settles crowds. "Attention, I said. "We are suspending event control due to unsafe vendor behavior. Please remain calm. Staff, follow the wind protocol." "This is not a drill." The words fell like sand. They absorbed panic before it could puddle. Ty's face went a color that meant he had just realized how many ways a man can lose without being arrested. He lunged for me and came up short because I had not moved. He hit chest to shoulder and found I was where I said I was built for. I set my palm on his sternum and pushed him away an inch. He looked smaller afterward, like a balloon that learned a pin existed. "We're going down," I said, and opened the door. The wind pushed and the door pushed back. I let old Sal's padlock do its job. I swung it through the hasp and cinched it so a gust couldn't slam the panel into our skulls when we came back. Small measures. Big nights are made of them. We started down the catwalk. 1 step, 2. The rain pointed needles at every exposed inch. I kept my breathing in the pocket where it works and doesn't announce itself. At the maintenance gate platform, I heard wheels from below, the golf cart rolling dumb under a line of banners. Someone yelled my name. Sal. His voice has gravel and cigarettes and enough years to carry. "Stop yapping and do what you came to do," he shouted, like we were across a workshop bench and not separated by rain and height. He planted his old boots and put his hands on the cart's bumper to pivot it out of the support's bite. He is not young. He is stubborn. Stubborn wins fights young men don't see coming. "Copy," I called, because the radio in my head always answers. We moved again, down another run of ladder, then across to the shack. Inside, the leverage of walls felt like kindness. The room was smaller than it was 10 minutes ago. The wind outside had grown teeth. The console light reflected in the window like a dull coin. The second key card lay there like a confession. I picked it up and read the name again. Mira. My hand shook like a tool right before it strips ahead. I set the card down and pressed the speaker button on my phone. I called her. She answered on the second ring like she had been waiting to hear herself. "You at your little show," she said, sugary. "Who signed the after-hours vendor pass that opened Game Row?" I said. "Your name is on the card sitting in front of me." "Darren handles access," she said in a tone that pretended she was reading to a child. "You told Darren to," I said. A beat, not long. Enough. "Well," she said, "someone had to keep things moving." Then she hung up. People always tell you more when they cut the call, because they choose the wrong door, the one that locks behind them. Keely's notification popped on my screen a second later. "Recording posted," she wrote. "Phone call included. Bless that woman's timing and her appetite for knives that hurt the right people." Lena looked smaller, not broken, focused. "She made a fool of me," she said. "She used him as a prop and me as a backdrop." "You helped," I said. "You picked up the match. You don't get to pretend your hand was forced." "Don't talk to me like I'm a child," she said. "Then stop practicing helpless," I said. "You're smarter than this town and crueler than it deserved." Her eyes flashed like a camera in a sudden dark. "You think you're some kind of moral accountant because you can fill a form," she said. "I think I'm the only person in this room who knows where every door leads," I said. Ty wiped rain from his forehead with the back of his hand like he could erase the last hour. "You going to arrest me," he said, to the room, to the camera, to the idea of authority. "I don't arrest," I said. "I log, I press play, I let gravity help." I lifted the used dash cam we had bought from him and clicked it into the monitor feed. The shack's little screen hiccuped, then filled with his own car sliding in a coil of smoke on the pier access road, the sign that says "No unauthorized vehicles" flashing past like a witness. There's a special quiet when a man recognizes himself doing the dumbest thing he has done this month. He stood in it and didn't blink. I keyed the PA to the ballroom and spoke without theatrical flourishes, because truth doesn't need garnish. "We are clearing the deck areas adjacent to the coaster," I said. "Security, hold perimeter. Officer Bell, eyes on the service corridor." From below, Bell's voice came back clean. "Copy," he said. "Perimeter set. Get your people down, Evan." "Working it," I said. To Lena, I said, "Your expansion lease hinges on my signature. I did not sign because I do not sign things when the numbers don't hold. Tonight settles that. You wanted a new office with glass. You can have a mirror instead." She didn't argue. That's when you know the world has moved, when a person like Lena decides silence is more useful than spin. Wind hit the shack in a slap that rattled the paneling. The door jumped. The padlock stopped it from being a weapon. A banner ribboned past the window like a white scarf trying to choke the dark. Somewhere below, a metal trash can lid clattered its way across a courtyard and informed everyone that circular things are stubborn. Ty moved toward the door again. Habit. He is a man who reaches for edges and thinks they are handles. I stepped into his path. "You want to hurt me?" I said. "You already tried. You burned my clothes and called me small. You took my home and rubbed it on a camera. You want to be the bad guy, but you're only the loud one. The bad guy printed that key card and told you where to wave it." He glanced at the console where Mira's name sat. The sense finally got in where pride had been blocking. He stopped moving. He looked tired. For one breath, I almost felt sorry. Then I remembered my house smelling like a synthetic campfire, and did not. Old Sal's voice arrived like a valve letting pressure off. "Quit counting and do it," he hollered from below, like I was holding a wrench wrong and needed a reminder. "He's right," I said. "We are done talking." I checked the handbrake again, felt the steel answer my palm like a muscle. "Do what?" Ty said, a half step of panic in it. "Finish," I said, "and come down." We stepped out onto the catwalk again. The rain had grown needles. The wind leaned on us like an old enemy. I moved to the maintenance gate and slid the padlock out, then set it back through and tightened it until metal touched metal and gave the little clink that says later you will find it right where you left it. Tiny satisfactions are the opposite of rage. They make a night bearable. Ty tried to shove past me, and I planted him with my forearm, not a hit, just a bar. He stumbled and caught the rail. The banner above us snapped free of the strut and slapped his shoulder, and he yelped and scrambled up toward the apex like higher meant fewer consequences. Lena followed 2 steps, stopped, and turned back to the shack door like a woman who finally met her limit and shook hands with it. I climbed after him. Steady. Hands where hands go. Boots where boots go. The test car sat where we had left it, parked inches short of the crest, coupler locked, brakes set, a small animal asleep in its stall. I knew every bolt in its spine. I knew how to make it move and how to make it stop harder than regret. Ty stood near the nose, chest heaving, hair-dyed streaks running into rain that didn't care. He backed up when I walked toward him. He hit the guardrail and looked left, where the town stretched like a photograph under glass, and right where only water and weather had opinions. "I didn't come up here to watch you jump to conclusions," I said. "I came up here to finish a conversation you keep avoiding by running." "I didn't burn the hoodies," he said. She did that, and told me to post the fire pit and pretend it was just a vibe." "I never thought you were the one with matches," I said. "You're the one with cameras." His mouth twitched. He hates being seen as what he is. Many men do. "You going to hit me again?" he said. "I'm going to give you something to remember," I said, and reached down and pulled the handbrake 1 notch. The car crept forward an inch, then another, the coupler still pinned, safe mode engaged, a slow animal raising its head. It made a sound like steel thinking about a decision. Ty pressed into the rail. He went pale in a way the camera hates. "This," I said, "is how close you are to the life you don't want." I leaned close so the wind had to carry my words through his ear and into the part of the brain that takes notes. "If you ever come near me again, if your car shows up on that access road, if your jaw opens in a way that aims at my name, I send the videos to your insurer, to the leasing office, and to every vendor committee that thinks about letting you near a plug. You will still be free. You will just have nowhere to stand where the ground feels solid." He swallowed. The wind pushed at the back of his jacket and made it slap the rail. He nodded once, the kind of nod you save for a threat that makes sense because it wears a tie. "Keys," I said. He fumbled them out. I took them and dropped them into the maintenance net below. They fell 6 feet, hit rope, and twanged like a small bell. The sound satisfied in a way I will not apologize for. I slapped him once, open palm, the same hand as before, the same message. "For the hoodies," I said. "For the lies you told yourself about being a man." It was not hard. It was clean. The camera on the shack caught the angle, and I let it. Sometimes truth needs a witness. Below, the ballroom had calmed to murmurs, and the evacuation had settled into clusters of people whose faces had new ideas. Officer Bell stood with his hands on his hips, and his radio crackled something about gusts and a loose sign in the parking lot. Old Sal had turned the golf cart, so it was no longer chewing the beam, and now leaned on it like he had invented wheels. "Down," I said to Ty, and he went, slow, hands white on the rail, his breath jury-rigged. I watched him go because sometimes the only kindness you can offer a man is making sure he reaches the ground he deserves. Lena waited at the shack door with rain running down her face in clean lines the makeup could not hold. She looked at me like a person who wants to ask a question the world has already answered. "Do I have anything left?" she said. "You have your name," I said. "You have a job if you rebuild it without shortcuts and mirrors. You have a town that will watch you the way it watches storms now. You do not have me. You do not have my signature. You do not have my quiet." She nodded once and stepped past me, down into the mouth of the stairs, into the rain and the view of the people who had come to buy a night and found a lesson for free. I stood on the platform and put my hand on the back of the test car like you pat an animal before you put it back to sleep. The wind gusted and fell. The storm decided whether it was done. I looked at the red lanyard on the e-stop and imagined it in my hand. I imagined the sound it would make, the soft, decisive halt. I imagined the picture it would draw across the lens of the security camera. Some nights, you are allowed to end with punctuation. I turned back toward the shack to set the last pieces in place. The path under my boots knew my weight and held it. My breath came steady because the work was nearly over and all that remained was the final line. The shack gave back my reflection like it was sick of me. I checked the panel one more time because my hands trust metal more than vows. The indicator lights sat there like well-behaved students waiting to be told to go home. Beyond the window, the ballroom was a scatter of umbrellas and the exit lights were clean. The night wanted to be over. People wanted their cars, but the thing wasn't finished, not yet. I keyed my radio. "Bell, status." "Perimeter holds," he said. "Wind's flirting with 23. Your boy with the shiny car is on the service stairs. He looks like a raccoon that read his comments." "Copy," I said. "I'm bringing him down." Lena stood by the door, rain in her eyelashes. She looked at the second key card like it had spelled her name wrong. "If she shows up here," she said, "I'll do worse than say a sentence into a hot mic." "You'll do nothing," I said. "You'll walk out, get in a ride share, and go sit in a room that smells like fresh paint, and think about why you set fire to a life that didn't need smoke to look interesting." "Don't talk to me like I'm stupid," she said. "You're not," I said. "That's the problem. You did all this with a full battery." She opened her mouth, closed it, and left. The door banged, but the padlock kept it from becoming a guillotine. Ty hovered in the threshold like a kid outside the principal's office. "So we done," he said, aiming for casual and hitting hollow. "Almost," I said. "You're going to walk downstairs without touching anything, and you're going to go home." He snorted. "Home," he said. "Sure." "Don't drive," I said. "You won't find your keys." He squinted at me like I'd said a word he didn't recognize. Then he went, shoulders high. I waited until his feet were on the first ladder and followed so he had to move. His shoes squeaked like a bad alibi. We hit the landing where the maintenance gate sat like a mouth. I slid the padlock, let the panel swing far enough to let us through, and locked it open. The wind shoved and failed. Below, the golf cart rolled a foot and bumped a beam. Old Sal put his shoulder to the bumper and hauled it into a safer angle. He raised his face, and the rain turned his stubble silver. "Quit babysitting and finish," he shouted. "Almost there," I called back, and caught Ty's elbow when he decided the ladder was optional. "Feet on rungs. Gravity doesn't care about your brand." He climbed. He didn't argue. At the shack door, Belle's light found our faces and held. "Good," he said. "Now keep going until there is nobody left up there who thinks they're special." "We have one left," I said. "She's here," Keeley said, sliding up under Belle's light like she rode a current. She held her phone sideways. The screen showed a paused video. Mira's face framed perfectly, the expensive lighting in her office, the stupid confidence of a person who thinks phones keep secrets for them because they want it more. The audio slider sat at the ready. Keeley grinned. "You missed the comments. They're art." "What did you post?" Belle said, not happy and not sad. "Her call," Keeley said. Her voice. "I told Darren to, you know the rest. 50,000 views and climbing. The mortgage lady just lost her nicest chair." Belle rubbed his eyes with his thumb and forefinger like he could squeeze out paperwork. "Keep the crowd out of the corridors," he said. "If she shows, she goes around front." "I hope she shows," Keeley said, and then behaved just enough to keep being useful. Ty reached the deck and kept walking. The thing about a man like him is that his power is an audience. He had lost that. The muscles were still there. The camera wasn't. He looked smaller now, like you get when the room finds out you're just a guy. He went down the service steps into the rain, and the rain didn't care about him either. I watched him go until he was a smear of white under the parking lot lights. Then I turned back to the catwalk. The wind leaned again. The coaster track groaned like an old song. The test car sat at the crest in safe, coupler pinned, brake engaged. It waited without expectation. I like machines with that quality. People attach hope to everything. It makes them clumsy. Footsteps behind me. Mira. Of course. She didn't come alone. She came with Darren, who looked like he had just remembered a meeting from last week, and a couple of donors with coats over their heads, faces ready to be important and impartial. Mira's smile did the work it always does. "Evan," she said, "we should talk about the chaos you're creating." I looked at Belle. He gave a micro shake of his head, and then a nod that meant he couldn't stop a conversation in public, but he could keep it inside the ropes. He stood just near enough that Mira would notice him each time she blinked. "You signed the pass," I said. "Your name is on a card upstairs. Your voice is on a recording telling Darren to." Mira drew herself taller in the storm, like she could use posture as a permit. "I facilitate," she said. "I don't break rules. If Darren mishandled a pass, that's on Darren." Darren's mouth opened and closed. The donors looked past all of us at the sky as if a job might fall out of it. Keeley's phone waited for a mouth to make the wrong shape. "You pushed Lena toward Ty," I said. "You whispered room after room. You fed her and him to each other so you could wave your hands during the fire and sell water." "I support talent," she said. "Sometimes that means matching energy with energy. If Lena took things too far, if Ty did, the market will handle that. It's not my job to manage personal lapses." Belle cleared his throat. "It is your job not to get people hurt," he said. "I don't care about your market. I care about whether doors open and close when they should." Mira turned the smile on him. It slid off like rain off a sign. She turned it back on me. "You made a spectacle," she said. "You let a rig fall. You turned off lights to scare guests. You chased 2 consenting adults into a ride structure in a storm. I'm sure management will thank you loudly and often for that." "The rig fell because you preferred a look to a sandbag," I said. The lights went exactly where they were told to go by the manual I helped write, and the 2 consenting adults trespassed with your pass. You can tell that to the mirror. It is good with hypocrisy. Her jaw worked. She glanced at Keely's phone and did some quick math, the kind smart people do when they realize the narrative has a spine and it isn't theirs. She inhaled, mouth opening, closing, changing arguments in midstream. Then she spotted old Sal. He had the look of a man who would hand you a tool before your sentence finished. He was wiping rain from his eyebrows with his wrist. His nose was red and noble. He is not a cop or a donor or a mortgage officer. He is important because he still works after the lights go out. She disregarded him automatically. That was her error. He walked up like a storm given legs, put one finger into the center of the conversation and said, "Enough." Nobody talks over my grandfather when he says enough. Not even weather. The word has weight from decades of bolts turned to the correct torque. "Girl," he said to Mira, not unkind, not gentle. "You built a slide and are mad that people used it. You want to throw a net over the water you churned and call yourself a rescue boat. That's not how water or nets work." "This is between professionals," she said. "I'm on this pier every night," he said. "You want to know what a professional looks like?" He points at me. He points at that boy. He pointed at me as if I were 20 again, and still learning to tighten without over-tightening. "We make sure the thrill machine doesn't bite. You wanted bite. Now the machine is going to tell you to leave." "Are you threatening me?" she said. "He's explaining gravity," I said. "It has a tone that makes lawyers nervous." The wind peeled around a corner. A banner caught on a railing flapped free and went high, a ghost making a choice. It tore neatly and vanished into the rain where everything eventually goes. The donors found an excuse to back toward the valet stand where their opinions would be drier. Darren checked his phone like it might grow a spine if he watched it. Mira tried one more door. "Lena will say you abused your position," she said. "Ty will say you hit him twice. The video will show you menacing him at height." "I did hit him," I said. "Open hand in a legal setting, after he shoved me and after he trespassed, and on camera with a cop 30 yards away. I'm not hiding from simple events, but the video also shows you, in a dry office, directing a pass around protocol and then writing him a script. He was your tool. Own it." Keely, mercifully, did not talk. She just let her phone eat the light. Mira's smile broke a centimeter, the smallest crack, like a glass too close to a stove. She took in a breath that wanted to be a command and came out as a shiver. She turned to go. Then she stopped and looked back at me. "You think you win tonight?" she said. "All you did was muddy the water. People forget. They forgive. They go back to loving the show." "Shows change," I said. "Sometimes the curtain falls. Sometimes the stage manager loses her keys." She left. Darren followed at a trot that looked like penance. The donors evaporated into the kind of cars that like to be named. Bell watched them go and did not smile. He gave me that look again, the one that says he will write if I make him, but would rather we all go home. "Clear your structure," he said. "I don't want to explain to the chief why I let anyone stay up there in this wind." 2 minutes, I said. He narrowed his eyes. "I mean it," I said. He accepted that. A radio squawked somewhere and he moved toward it, drawn like an electrician to a bad buzzing. It was down to me, the storm, and the ride. I climbed the stairs again, because some nights you have to do a thing twice to be sure. The catwalk was slick as honesty. The crest felt closer. The town felt smaller. I checked the coupler pin, the chain on the front truck, the lever. Everything was where it belonged. I breathed once, long. The wind dropped half a step, like it wanted to listen. Footsteps behind me again. Ty, of course. He had circled right back, drawn by the part of his brain that loves the last word. He stopped 6 feet away, panting like a dog after the fence. "We aren't done," he said. "You think you can walk down and go to sleep? I'll be waiting. I'll make content you can't ignore. You'll do nothing, I said, tired of his script. Because you've already finished your season. The network canceled you and forgot to send the email. He took one more step. His eyes were hot again, the way they get when someone's audience whispers its last applause in his ear long after the room has emptied. Hit me, he said. Do it again. If that's who you are, be it. No, I said, and pulled the brake one notch so the test car crept forward on safe like a slow yes. It rolled 3 inches. The nose kissed the crest and waited. I am this, I said. I am the man who decides when the ride stops. He stared at the car like it had spoken. The wind grabbed his jacket and pulled. He took a step back without deciding to. Good. A human being still lived under the video game. Walk, I said. Down. This is your exit. Take it. He went. He was all mutter and ache, but he went. I watched him until he was a shadow at the shack and then a smear on the stairs. Then I looked down the line to the ballroom. Officer Bell was at the threshold, hand up to his radio, head tipped to hear weather and folly at the same time. Old Sal leaned on the rail, eyes up, the way he watched when I was 12 and learning to swing a hammer without hitting my thumb. He pointed at his chest with his thumb, then at the e-stop, then at me. Finish, the gesture said. Not with noise, with work. It was not vengeance he was giving me. It was permission to end it the way men like us end things. Clean, cold, no speech, nothing you have to explain twice. I eased the brake back to set. The car settled with a private sigh. I stood at the crest with rain in my mouth and a hand on the rail and felt the whole machine breathe. And I knew exactly how the last seconds would go downstairs, how the lease would die, how the rumor engine would cool, how Mira would find her calendar suddenly empty, how Lena would measure her name and find it light for a while, how Ty would discover silence costs more than scentless soap. I started down, hand over hand, the pads of my fingers finding slick steel and old wood and the remembered weight of a younger man's mistakes. At the maintenance gate, I paused, touched the padlock like a talisman, and looked back at the small red lanyard across the way. It hung there like a period waiting at the end of a sentence. 2 minutes, Officer Bell called, the sound carrying. 30 seconds, I said, and I meant it. I crossed to the shack, stepped inside, and wiped rain from my eyes with the back of my wrist. The console lights were steady. The PA switch gleamed like a coin at the bottom of a fountain. The radio on my shoulder hissed. Somewhere below, Keeley laughed, once sharp as a nail driven to the right depth. Old Sal cleared his throat like a cue.